I'm Michael Bungay-Stanier. This is Change Signal, the podcast where we cut through the blather, the BS, and the noise to find the good stuff that works in change. If you're a transformational leader and you're looking for modern change mastery, this is exactly the right place for you. So one of the things that we talk about in change often is cultural change. And culture change over the years has emerged and changed and evolved. And I'm really interested to dive into what changes and what culture changes in particular. Siobhán McHale knows a bit about this. So Siobhán, welcome.
Thank you, Michael.
And how do you introduce yourself these days? I mean, who are you?
I define myself as an insider.
Okay.
So the insider is a role that, I'm not on the outside. I'm really in the organisation, rolling up my sleeves every day, working side by side with leaders, managers to make change happen.
I love it.
So I'm the person that they call up if there's a problem, you want to improve your customer satisfaction, you want to grow your revenue, you want to increase your profits, you want to improve quality. I'm the person that can help, I think, with those problems, but from the inside.
And so are you inside an organisation?
I have been in a series of organisations over the last 2 decades.
Okay, so where have you cut your teeth in terms of being an insider?
I think the first place I really cut my teeth was ANZ.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and I was involved.
One of Australia's great banks.
Yes. I was involved in a major turnaround, the Breakout program. I led that program for a number of years under John McFarlane. And that was really where I started to test the ideas around change and what I've been taught and what really works in the field in practice.
Yeah. What do you, as somebody who's been in this discipline for a while now, what do you know about change now that you might not have known, say, 5 years ago?
Yeah, I think writing my second book, The Hive Mind at Work, it really distilled for me the essence of what it takes to bring about successful change.
Right.
And this notion that we have to move beyond IQ and EQ and into the realm of what I call group intelligence, which is really about systems thinking in order to understand and be able to navigate in complexity and within human ecosystems, essentially.
So navigating complexity in ecosystems, I'm excited about that. But systems thinking, I kind of think I know what that is, but I'm not sure. So tell me what that is and what the hive mind is.
Sure. So I talk about this progression in the hive mind at work from how in the past we saw organisations as machines.
Yeah.
And when we saw organisations as machines, we could use IQ to solve those problems because they were mechanical, they were cause and effect, they were linear.
So something not working, you pop the hood, you get out your spanner and you kind of like fix the thing.
Exactly. And you need a top-down control to tell people what to do and smart people on top. And then the thinking evolved to the next phase of development, if you like, which was that organisations were social networks.
Right.
And within those social networks, you needed influencers. So there's some of this emerged from the anthropologist J.A. Barnes, who studied a Norwegian fishing village and found and mapped that, certain people had more connections. They were the nodes of connection. They were the influencers within the social network. So that emerged, the whole thinking around you need influencers, you need change agents within the network, etc. But what I'm saying in the hive mind at work is we need to move beyond that, because in order to be influential in the social network, you needed EQ. You needed to be good at influencing, you needed to understand, you needed to be able to listen, you needed to be able to empathize. But if we think about that metaphor today, what I'm encouraging people to do is to move beyond the social network metaphor to the ecosystem metaphor.
Right.
And in complex ecosystems, you need to understand not just interpersonal relationships, you need to understand relatedness. You need to understand the role of the parts. You need to understand the relatedness or the patterns between the parts and how that entire ecosystem is functioning.
Okay. If I'm a transformational leader, how do I go about doing that?
Yes.
It feels like a big ask.
Yes, it is, and it does take years to develop the intelligence,
Right.
the group intelligence that I'm talking about, and it's not something that we're taught. So I believe you've got to go on a journey, and I talk about that journey in the Hive Mind at work. And the first important component of that is being able to see the system.
Right.
You must be able to see what is truly going on in the system, and one of the tools for doing that is mapping.
Okay, so how do I map a system?
How do you map the system?
Because can I just whip out my org chart?
Yes, it's not necessarily your org chart. So let me give you an example.
Setting you up. Just to be clear to everyone listening, it is 100% not your org chart. Whatever your system is, it's definitely not that.
It's not your org chart. True. One of the examples that I give, let's take the ANZ example. Okay, so walking into ANZ, and there was a big problem.
Yeah.
And the executives had tried to fix the problem, and they had failed. And they had restructured the bank, and it had actually taken them backwards. So they were the worst performing bank in the country with the worst customer satisfaction score. So what do we do? Do we continue down that path, which was taking them in the wrong direction? So we stepped back and we started to see what's really going on.
Yeah.
Interviewed people and essentially mapped the system or the ecosystem. And what we discovered was that the bank branches were in role of order, and they essentially were the order takers.
Right.
And head office was in role of order giver.
Right.
So you had this hidden agreement or pattern between those two parts of the system was we take the orders from head office.
Okay.
And that led the 700 bank branches to become very disengaged, satisfaction
just
rates.
Passive,
Passive.
waiting to be told what to do.
Waiting, very, and customer satisfaction was through the floor.
Yeah.
So seeing that pattern, seeing the roles of order taker, order giver, we could go on the journey to reframe those roles. And essentially we put in a new operating model where we devolved responsibility to local CEOs and basically started to rewire the whole organization up in a very different way using a different operating model.
Yeah. So the mapping the system came, it sounds like primarily through interviews?
Interviews and observation. I talk about the power of observation. So you would go into the branches and you'd look around and say, gosh, there's paint peeling off the walls here. There's just people, queues, a mile long. There are, the carpets were shredded. And yet in head office, you had a very different...
You had chandeliers and gilt and somebody pushing a tea trolley around.
Exactly, exactly. And it seems so obvious once you see the pattern.
Yeah.
You think, oh, well, that's so simple. I call that the order taker pattern.
Yeah.
But that complexity had to be reduced to something that was really simple, and that was running the bank.
Yeah.
The order giver, order taker pattern.
So who is most helpfully mapping the system? Are you trying to get the C-suite to map it, or is there a change team? I mean, where does the responsibility for that lie?
Ultimately, anybody can map the system if they understand how to do this work. But obviously, if you're in the HR team or you're an OD expert, which I work, that was some of my work in Dulux Group, is training up the HR team, the OD experts to be able to do this work. But if you're proficient, you can do it from anywhere. You just need to be able to understand how. So the lens is not what is happening. The behavior is what is happening, who is doing what. The lens is more how is the ecosystem functioning.
Got it. Because what is happening feels like discrete atomic things.
Correct.
Whereas what you're mapping is relationships between things and the way energy, I guess, and control and power flows through a system to understand how that might work.
Exactly. And rather than discrete. So Lehman Brothers might be another example, the big bank that failed and triggered the GFC. And the analysts came in following that failure to say, well, who's to blame? Is it the CEO? Is it the incentives? Is it the board? Pointing the finger and looking for singular root causes. And in fact, if you look at that whole ecosystem, you can see that it was co-created.
Yeah.
And it's one of the things I map for people in the Hive Mind at Work. My book, I talk about the fact that you had the board was in role of endorser of these incentives for basically short-term thinking. You had the management team who were implementing this sort of system. You had the auditors who were the window dressers sort of covering this up. You had a whole suite of different parts of that ecosystem stepping into a role to co-create the short-termism pattern, essentially, that drove
as the saying goes, every system is perfectly designed to get the results it's currently getting.
Exactly.
How do you know where to intervene in a system? I mean, let's say you've done the process, part observation, part sitting down with people going, how does power work and who do you talk to and where does it go? You've now got something created. And as you say, it's all intertwined. That's the nature of a system. How do you figure out where you go, I'm going to push on this thing, or I'm going to take that out, or I'm going to shift this to the right?
Such a brilliant question, because in your journey to become, to have group intelligence, if you like, there are 3 phases. The first phase is to see the system. Understand the roles, relatedness and patterns. The second phase is to be able to design interventions that can help this reveal the system to itself and help the system to begin to rewire. And the third phase is to be able to intervene successfully without organ rejection. Because doing this work, and this is why I have a bit of an issue with people. So you just need courage. You just need resilience. The fact is, in organizational life, if you stand up and you say, excuse me, I don't like what's going on here, you will possibly get organ rejection.
It doesn't matter how courageous and resilient you are if you've been fired.
Exactly. You're ejected from the system. So you must know how to intervene. And that is a very tricky and one of the most difficult skills when it comes to group intelligence.
So if you were coaching me on that third phase around how to make an intervention, that won't be the equivalent of throwing myself onto a mine. How do what guidance or wisdom would you share?
I would share the perspective that, many times I'm part of an executive team. And rather than telling the executive team, this is what's wrong, I would map the system with them. Map it with them and emerge it with them. So they're the ones saying, oh, we're in role of order givers and they're in role of order takers. And you facilitate that. So you don't go in with, oh, here's the system, here's the pattern, because they won't recognize it. They will reject it. They will say, oh, that's not really how it works. But when you
haven't quite understood this properly. Good try, but
it's not quite like that. So you often working to emerge and to co-create the map with the teams involved. So they will come to you with a problem. They will say, Michael, we've got a problem.
So is this the second phase? The second phase, which is interventions to reveal the system to itself. Is this what we're talking about here, or is that something else?
You can get ejected right from the start. I'm trying to prevent you from getting ejected from the system, and it can happen right at the mapping, at the diagnostic phase. When you're in diagnostic phase, sometimes, because reframing is a massive tool in this, so sometimes in the room change can happen because people can go, oh, we're in the wrong role.
I had no idea,
We're in a completely wrong role. It happened actually to me when I joined Dulux Group and I was in an interview. And the interviewing team, the CFO and the CMO said to me, okay, Siobhán, so you're a change person. What would you do here? We're trying to grow. What's the solution? And I was, oh, okay. Haven't even joined, don't know. But they said, well, give it a go. What would you do to help us grow revenue? And I said, okay, well, I don't know your organization, but I have looked at your org chart. And one of the things that I notice is that you have framed the role of your garden care leader as Garden Care ANZ, Garden Care Australia, New Zealand. And I'm wondering why you have framed the role in that way. They said, well, we don't want that person getting distracted.
Right.
In the past, people got distracted. That led to plummeting revenue, and that wasn't a good situation. I said, well, okay, you're holding the hypothesis that if you frame the role as a global role and you knocked off the ANZ, that would be disastrous. I said, I hold a very different hypothesis.
Right.
They reframed the role. That person did a global study tour, discovered that glyphosate was not a very good thing, and we purchased an organic garden care company, and that business has gone from strength to strength because of that reframe. So the change happened in the room. There wasn't all this resistance and push and pull. It was a simple reframe. So interventions can be very quick, or they can, you know, in some organisations like ANZ, it took 7 years. And one of the words that I glommed onto was you going, what's your hypothesis? Or actually saying to their statement of fact, that's an interesting hypothesis. I hold a different hypothesis, which is immediately a kind of a loosening of how they're seeing the world. Yes.
What's the power of that word hypothesis?
The power is that you don't have to be attached to it. You don't have to marry it. You can loosely hold it, and then you can test. You can test and continue to test your assumptions. So what you find by framing things as a hypothesis is that you can have an argument about it because it's just a hypothesis. You can revise it if it's not working for you. So I find that frees the conversation up and allows dialogue.
Let me ask you another question about the hive mind and group intelligence. I understand the process of mapping might give me an intelligence of the group, which is like I'm seeing a system now and I'm seeing how I could come up with some interventions and try some stuff. But you haven't called it intelligence of a group, you called it group intelligence. Are you trying to spread an awareness and a wisdom through more people? Or is it just about a few people getting a better grip on kind of how the whole system kind of holds itself?
Great question. I think group intelligence exists at the individual and collective levels. So a group can have an intelligence that allows it to adapt and to be more flexible and be more productive. But groups often, hive minds often get stuck. They can get stuck in dysfunctional patterns. And how do you as a leader walk up to that? And I think the toolkit we've been given is very much an interpersonal toolkit. And yet we know that people behave very differently in groups than they do as individuals. That the system captures them almost as soon as they walk in the door. And yet we're still advising leaders, you know, just listen and be caring and create psychologically safe environment. That's necessary but not sufficient for that group complexity. So what I'm trying to say is, yes, we understand that groups have an intelligence, but also you as a leader need to have that group intelligence to be able to understand that group, understand its unique dynamics, understand how it's getting stuck and the ways to get unstuck.
So one of the things I'm enjoying about this conversation is I can feel your slight irritation at a few things that keep bubbling up.
Can you?
Yeah, I can. So if you were to name one of the things where you're like, I just wish people would unlearn this or deprioritize this or not be so hung up about this being a thing. What's the invitation to unlearn that you want to make?
I think it's interesting that you picked that up, because I think we're overusing the hammer of EQ and IQ. And we're bringing that hammer to every single problem. And what I'm seeing is managers and leaders who are coming to us with real business problems. They're saying, you know, I've got a problem with my customer service. I've got a problem with my quality. I've got a problem with safety. I've got a problem with, I'm not growing. My margins are dropping. And we're coming to those problems with EQ solutions. and not always, but some of us.
Yeah, yeah.
And some of them are buying those solutions, but many of them, in my experience, it just leaves them cold.
Yeah,
it's like, yeah, you're talking to me about stuff and I'm worried about other stuff.
Yeah,
so what I'm trying to get people to do is to start to rewire your brain for the systemic, because as soon as I had conversations with the CEO at Dulux Group about this, and I just started with a simple conversation about role. You're in multiple roles in your life. You're in role of CEO, Patrick, in role of chairman, in role of brother, in role of son, in role of, even in one conversation, we can be in multiple roles.
For sure.
Of listener, of challenger. This is very freeing, rather than this personality cult.
Right.
You know, I am this person, I'm in a box. You're in multiple roles constantly. So, I think the invitation is there for us to go to this next level of more dealing with the complexity we're faced with a suite of tools that allow us to add value in those conversations.
For people who want more about you and your work and to pick up information about your books, where do they find you, Siobhán?
They can find me on LinkedIn. Yeah, Siobhán McHale on LinkedIn, and the Hive Mind at work, and my first book, The Insider's Guide to Culture Change, expand a lot more on this thinking, particularly around group intelligence.
Perfect. Siobhán, thank you.
You're very welcome, Michael.